So we're diving into how to build a cash flowing real estate business of your dreams. So this is a webinar series. We're going to tackle several different topics over the next few weeks on how to get started in real estate investing or how to scale. So thank you guys for joining, spending your most precious resource with me, which is your time. So let's dive in and get started. All right. So this webinar series, and like I said, we're going to tackle so many different topics here, but this is for you if you've tried to buy rental real estate before and got stuck in analysis paralysis, lost your confidence, or maybe you've invested in a few rentals before but have hit a ceiling in your growth, or maybe you're just so overwhelmed by all the information out there and you just haven't actually gotten started yet investing in real estate. This webinar series is for you. So essentially, if you've never purchased real estate before, or if you have a few rentals and you're about, we are going to show you how to get started and start scaling. So before we get started, this is me. This is my crazy crew. I actually got started in investing in real estate back in 2002. I was doing some house hacking and fix and flipping, earning money, but it was just periodic money, buckets of money. Nothing really wrong with that, but I couldn't actually live off of it. I couldn't sustain a cash flow off of it. And it took me a few years to understand, man, I just don't have an investing plan. I was doing things the hard way. My husband joined me in my crazy antics of fix and flipping in 2006. And then eventually we transitioned into rental real estate. So buy and hold rental real estate where we're able to actually rent out the units and earn cash flow. And then we started scaling our portfolio from there. And guys, it has been a crazy time. We've started scaling our portfolio, and today where we are is I'm actually a partner in over $500 million of rental real estate. It breaks down between residential units and self-storage units. We've flipped a few million residential real estate, but you know what? None of our success was possible until we actually completed those first 30 burrs using other people's money. And I'll tell you why. It's because we were able to get back, take control of our number one resource, which was our time, okay? And so that is what I love teaching people how to do. And you know what? We were not full-time real estate investors. That didn't happen for us until probably the last year and a half. All of that was done while working a job, being a wife, being a mom, and taking care of our family. So that's just a little bit about me. And I love real estate investing. I want to back up just a second because we take all of this away. This is why I do it, so I can spend time with my family. This was our last out of the country trip in Mexico, and we look forward to taking so many more. So what makes what I'm going to share today and across this whole series different? Well, it's that I've discovered over 18 years a few different things. One, you have to have a specific investing roadmap, okay? You have to have one in place that can get you to financial independence. If you don't have a roadmap right now, a path, a clear path, any path to get you to financial independence, you're going to be just kind of like any road will get you anywhere, right? Kind of like the poem by Robert Frost. You also have to have a formula for repeatable systems and for your team, okay? And so we're going to, over the next few weeks and few months, we're going to share with you some tips and tricks over that. And you have to learn how to scale, okay? And eventually, it depends on how far you want to grow, how fast you want to grow. That scale, to really build accelerated wealth, you have to learn how to use other people's money. Now, this can be just as simple as getting a conventional loan or a commercial loan on our property, but we can actually supercharge that in so many different ways. So, and again, my results in all of this, okay, it's not about the unit count. It's not about how much I have under management or in partnership. The result is I now have 100% choice in how I spend my time. For me, that is the most precious thing. Time is your most non-renewable resource. You can always make more money, you can get another job, you can do all this, but you can never get your time back. All right, so I'm going to share with you. I used to do this webinar series where I tried to pack in as much as I could in 45 minutes. It was at a dizzying pace. And you know what? I realized something very important is that people really weren't taking an extreme amount of value from this. So we're going to kind of slow our roll a little bit, and I've broken out topics over the course of the next few weeks so we can really dive into a few specific areas that you should really understand as you're doing your real estate investment. Today, we're going to start off with one of the top things that you've got to have going on. I mean, it's the first week of the new year. And I mean, what better time for us to really get our financial roadmap in place? So, again, I labeled this part one, right? This is my little secret. This is the first part of building your investing roadmap, is understanding the financial piece. And whenever you have an investing roadmap in place, I guarantee you can actually get more done in 1 year than you can in 5 if you don't have one. This is how important this is. All right, so let's dive into a little bit. Now, I want you guys, if you have questions, jump over to the chat box, type in your questions. I will answer those questions in line with the presentation, and then we can clean up any at the end that we have left over. So the first thing when we're thinking about a financial roadmap, I know this sounds amazingly crazy. It actually has nothing to do with a number. Nothing at all to do with a number. You actually have to understand why you're getting into investing, okay? Now, this isn't like Tony Robbins frou-frou work or anything like that. And by the way, I love Tony Robbins, okay? But this is really, and I'm gonna explain in a minute why you have to do this exercise. So how we get started, you need to sit down with a pen and paper, okay? And find a quiet corner, get away from the dog, the kids, everything, life, work, and you really need to suss out, why do you want to invest in real estate, okay? Now, most people that invest in real estate, or most people that I work with, they were like, well, I want to build up cash flow because I want job security, or I want to go on an extra vacation. Right, that's great. Well, why do you want that? Okay, we need to keep going levels deeper. Well, maybe they want to have job security. Great. Why do you want that? Why do you want job security? Okay, you see what I'm saying? You got to ask these questions, and you got to suss out, what is it that real estate is actually going to give you? Now, here's my challenge to you. I only put these questions on, 4 of these questions, the why do you want that question on here. Go deep, a minimum of 7 layers deep. It's hard. Most people, I honestly, like everybody that I work with in coaching, this is the first exercise that I recap with them in our very first call. You know, what is your why? We have to know this. We have to understand how it fits into your roadmap. 99% of the time, they have stopped at level 4 or 5. They never completed the other 2 or 3 levels. And you know what? The biggest response I get is they're like, it was too hard. I thought I was good enough. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to explain why you got to do the deep work on this. Is that the first, asking yourself, why do you want to invest in real estate? Your initial why is probably going to indicate that you are running from something, okay? It is your daily pain that you're experiencing. Okay. Now, if your initial why is like, hey, I want to build up cash flow so I can take my family on vacation, that doesn't really sound like a pain, right? But it is something that you're running from, right? Something's not right with your life, okay? But the deeper you go in asking these whys, you're actually going to figure out what you're running towards, okay? Now, how do these 2 things? You need to understand both of them, okay? They both serve you a purpose. That first why, okay, I want to build cash flow so I have job security. I want to build cash flow so I can take my family on vacation. That is going to be the daily reminder, your daily motivation. That is what's going to probably get you out of bed every single day. It's going to be the annoying thorn in your side because it's telling you something that you don't have in your life. But our decisions that we need to focus on as we build our roadmap, as you go through your investing career, is going to be that deep level 7th layer why, because that's your guiding compass. All right. Here's an example. For me, when we first started doing this exercise, my why is that I simply needed to build cash flow because I knew my job had an expiration date. It was coming. Okay. Could I go out and get another job? Of course. But I was like, burn the boats. Like I wanted to figure this out. But when I sat down and I did this exercise, I really figured out my guiding compass is that I wanted control of my time to spend with loved ones, family and friends, because that was my North Star. Okay. Now, granted, as I'm scaling my portfolio, these 30 units, the initial burr investments, those were great. They gave me the cash flow. They got me away from my daily pain. All right. They got me out of my job. But as I started scaling and building and really amplifying, accelerating my wealth growth, it was my guiding compass. That was the litmus test on how I built my real estate career. Okay. For me, my litmus test, if I come across an investment or a partnership and it's going to take me an immense amount of time and take me away from my family and friends, I'm okay with a little bit of it, but if it's gonna, if I'm gonna have to invest 40 hours a week, for me and my guiding compass, I'm gonna say no. All right. So just remember these two things. Do the exercise. Okay, this is number one. Know your why. Why do you want to invest in real estate? Go 7 layers deep, minimum. Okay. Sit with it. All right. And you might not find the most beautiful words. You might not be able to articulate everything. That's totally fine. That's totally cool. But just sit with it over time and you'll be able to dial that in. So it's very important that you understand that. Okay, because we need to know what's going to motivate you on a daily basis and what is your guiding compass. And you have to know those two things in order to get into your investing roadmap, which we're going to do here either next week or the week after next. All right. Now, once you do the exercise, you got to know your goals. Okay. Beginning of the year, everybody's talking about it, goals or resolutions. What are your goals? What are your resolutions? Even my 8-year-old the other day was like, what are your New Year's resolutions? And I have not done resolutions in like 10 years. I will set goals. I will actually, I guess they technically are resolutions, but I have never used that term. Okay. But you got to know your goals. Okay. Knowing your goals and actually achieving the goals are two different processes. So we have to understand that. Okay. So our first goal, again, we're focused on our financial roadmap, is we need to understand what your true expenses are in your life, right? Remember, that first why most likely is going to be some sort of security, some sort of pain, some sort of fear-based thing, whether you phrase it from a fearful standpoint or not. It's going to be some sort of lack in your life. Okay, you're lacking something. Okay, so that's a security issue, right? We want to get you to the abundance side, right? But our first milestone is to get you secure. Okay, so what are your expenses in your life? All right, we want to remove those golden handcuffs. All right, so you get real with yourself. Look at your past 6 months of expenses. Okay, maybe take out holiday gifts. Maybe adjust a little bit if you're not traveling as much as you used to because of COVID or something like that. But what are your true expenses? And get really raw and honest with yourself. Now, I put a few things on here that you really actually need to dive into, especially if you have a paycheck. One, what are your health insurance costs? Right? Because if our intent is to get you from security to freedom, you're going to have to find a way to pay for that health insurance. And if your employer is paying both sides of the health insurance for you, or even just half the health insurance, you need to know what the true cost is. All right. All right. So you got your health insurance. Next one that you're going to want to tackle is your benefits. All right. Life insurance and stuff like that. What are your true costs of your benefits? You need to understand also your true cost of your taxes, and then maybe your true cost of your childcare. All right. And I just kind of threw these things because when I work with people, these are kind of the areas where I push back a little bit to understand, do we really have all of our numbers dialed in? And if we don't, we need to dig in here and get really raw and honest with ourselves. Because oftentimes when your paycheck hits your bank account, that's net. We want to understand gross, right? Your gross pay minus your gross expenses, right? So, you got to think about your insurance, your FICA, and all that sort of stuff. All right. So milestone number one, get you financially secure, okay? Now, again, that's great. We want to be secure, but we want to hit what our North Star is, our true goal. Okay. Our true goal is that abundant life. All right. So the other thing that we want to understand is, and even do it now, is what is your ideal life? Okay. Now, I'm not asking for the Grant Cardone swing for the fences, you know, $50,000 a month, $100,000 a month yacht, you know, no, I'm not asking for that. But what is your milestone number 2? If we had you financially secure, all your day-to-day expenses covered, you know, roof over your head, clothes on your body, food on the table, everybody's happy, healthy, what would feed your soul? What would allow you to step into that next level of abundance? We want to identify that as milestone number 2. Why? Why are we doing that right now? It's because we want to understand the goal past where you're going, right? Most people's motivation isn't to achieve the goal where they're at, it's to get to the next step past that. So we always want to have one milestone defined after the one that we're trying to work on, right? And you see, the biggest mistake that I find is that people are actually trying to replace their paycheck. All right. So we want to really, truly understand what your expenses are and what would define your ideal life. Okay. Sometimes I work with people and we find out that their paycheck actually does not cover their expenses at all. We've got to do a lot of financial work. We've got to do a lot of other goal setting and supplementation of capital and cash flow to get them to where they want to be. But most of the time, we find out that the paycheck is actually more than enough for them to meet their financial goals. And so they can actually hit milestone number 1 and milestone 2 so much sooner. Okay. Now, all right, as you go through this exercise, this might be extremely uncomfortable, not gonna lie, right? Because you might find out like, holy smokes, I got to cover, how in the world am I going to make $10,000 a month in the next 5 years? How in the world, maybe your expenses are 15. I was working with one client, 3 kids, and where they live and how they wanted to live their financial independent life, they needed $30,000. And it was just like, she just couldn't see past that. If you don't like that number, you've got options. You can always increase the income, and we're going to talk about this when we talk about our investing roadmap when we're actually getting into the asset piece. You can always decrease your expenses, right? All right. I'm not talking about how can you go from, you know, organic food at Whole Foods to ramen noodles at decreasing your expenses, but you know, can you actually do a hard look and cut the fluff? All right. We did that a few years ago. Renegotiated all of our utility bills and stuff like that, payment plans and stuff like that. We saved between our internet provider, cable TV, and our cell phone providers, just for our family. We saved over $400 a month. I know that sounds like an absurd number, but that is the type of lifestyle creep that some people are dealing with in their life. And we had that, and that, you know, you got to make sure to kind of cut the fat a little bit if that's a problem for you. Or do both. Increase your income, decrease your expenses at the same time, okay? We call it in business increasing your net operating income. And we're also going to talk about this in the future about how it relates to the investment asset, because it's also the same thing there too. All right. The next part of our financial roadmap is understanding your capital number. Okay. Now, we want to understand, what do you have to invest? Okay. What kind of cash do you have on hand? What kind of savings do you have? What are your retirement accounts look like? Do you have any cash value in life insurance properties? Do you have underperforming equity, right? We would take a look at all these different factors and feed it into your investing roadmap. Now, oftentimes what I find is that people are actually trying to save up in hard cash in order to invest, not understanding that we can actually unlock some retirement accounts and help them invest better, or reorient their lens and look at some of their retirement accounts as their emergency accounts so they can actually use some of their cash and savings to invest. So I put a little note here to myself, your retirement account, your Roth. If you have one of those, I highly suggest, people build their Roth accounts, their HSA accounts. We can, if you guys want me to expand on that, happy to do so. But Roth accounts can be used for emergencies. Okay, so that's a great double duty account between retirement and emergency savings, allowing you to have the cushion at home, to have your emergency costs covered, but also allowing you the freedom and license to use some of your other resources to invest. But it's not always about what you have. You also have to think about, what do others have? As you get into real estate investing, you get successful, and get maybe 1 or 2 deals, 3 deals, 4 deals under your belt, and you start talking about it. People are going to wonder, what are you doing? Like, oh my gosh, who are you? How are you changing? All right. You want to be able to understand, what do other people have to invest? If you guys want me to, I can touch on a couple of my clients that I've worked with. They've actually, in all of these cases, we've utilized other people's money, right? One of them, their parents have had cash sitting in the account that was only earning 0.6% interest. This was before COVID, and that funded the entire down payment. Now, it wasn't free money. We wrote them a note, and we did a very specific reason why we wrote the parents a note. But you can actually help other people who are not wanting to take the step forward to invest themselves, get into real estate, and help you support your career. There are people who have life insurance, cash in a life insurance policy. This was the case in my family. Both of my grandparents had cash value in the life insurance policy, and that's what they considered an investment. They didn't even occur to them that they could borrow the cash, still make their dividend return, but then lend it to me, arbitrage the money, and then I could go achieve my goals. And then they got more of a dividend payment on top of that, between the note that they wrote to me and then also what they got paid in a dividend from the life insurance policy. And then also another thing to really talk about right now, whether it's your underperforming equity in either a property or your personal residence, but also how can you tap into other people's underperforming equity in their properties as well, okay? This is a great time. Interest rates are so low. This is a great time to do this. Now, I'm not talking about over leverage. I would never suggest anybody over leverage your property, right? There's a time and a place for it, but these are all different ways that we can find capital and think outside the box, other than, what do I have sitting in my savings account today to invest? All right. Now, I told you we're going to dive into the investment roadmap a little bit more in more detail at a later date, but let's just give you like a little bit of a sneak peek of what that might look like. So, when we gather up all this financial information, again, what we're trying to figure out is, where are we and where are we going? Okay, where's our point A and where's our point B on where we're going? Okay, because if we understand those two things, then it's going to be so much easier for us to suss out the different parts of our investing roadmap. We now have a lens to look through, and we can say, yep, I want to do certain investment strategies, or I can say, nope, I don't. Here's a good example. If your investing strategy, if your financial roadmap, your why, you want more time back, flipping probably is not going to be your best friend. That takes a lot of time. Okay, so we would probably take that off the table as an investing strategy. Now, we might use it to complement it every once in a while in your investing roadmap, but we would take it, being a house flipper, completely off the table probably for you, unless you wanted to build a flipping business. Different story, right? We want to understand what time that you have to dedicate to your investment strategy. So again, what we're doing here is we're calling it business alignment. Okay, we're taking everything that we did in our financial road mapping and we're aligning it with our investment roadmap. And then the market. All right, where do you want to invest? Right? Sometimes our strategy that we want to do is not the strategy that's in our backyard. Okay, so we're going to align the market on where these strategies are actually available to us. Okay, and then as we go further down our investing roadmap, we're going to take a look at the the different criteria related to the deal. What's the cash flow of the deal? How is that going to help us achieve our goals? What are the criteria that we need to consider on the deal to help us achieve our goals? And then the execution phase, the actual underwriting. What are our underwriting criteria? Okay. And again, this screen here, we're going to get in further detail in future episodes. All right. So I just want to take a quick pause here. Okay. And have you guys go to the chat box. Again, you know, this is just meant to be kind of like a quick little snippet on how to set up your investing roadmap. Part 1, we talked about the different financial elements that we need to consider here. So go over to the chat box and let me know if you have any questions. And as you're doing that, if you want to have additional help with this, I am more than happy to talk about a couple of solutions that I have for you. If you're just here to hang out and glean some information, thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Make sure to leave me your comment and chat in the or question in the chat box, and we can get those answers for you.